Alright, so in today's tutorial, we'll be looking at metrics in R, and this is a continuation of the different data types in R. Alright, so basically we'll be looking at how to create a matrix in R, also how to use common functions related to matrices in R, and also let's say how to add matrix row and column names, and basically end with how to access matrix elements in R. So to begin with, a matrix in R is a kind of data structure for storing objects of the same type. So in the case you want to store different objects inside an R data structure, then you might be using a data frame, which we'll be looking at in our next tutorial, right? So to begin with, let's look at how to create a matrix in R. How do we do this? First of all, we need to get some object. So let's say we have a data. This is an object that we're going to create. Let's sample. Let's say 1 to 10. We just need size 6 and replacement should be true. Right. So let's run this. Alright. So this we can create a matrix by making use of the matrix function. So I'm going to use matrix. Then data. Right, let's run this. So by default matrix, once you do this, you are going to have a column vector type of matrix. So the first index and the first number inside the square bracket is for the rows, and the second number inside the square bracket is for the column. So basically this reads as 6 rows 1 column, that is an n by 1 column, right? So this is basically a column vector. So the first one is 1 by 1, 2 row 2 column 1, row 3 column 1, in that order. Now assuming you want to be specific with the dimension, you want to let's say you want 3 rows for instance. So data number of rows is going to be 3, right? By default, the arrangement of the element is column wise, so by row is false. This is by default. So once you run this, you realize that you have 3 rows 2 columns. So right, so the arrangement is going to be column wise. That's going to pick this 1 2 3 to be the first row. Then the second arrangement, this numbers 10 to 8 will represent the second column. So the arrangement is column wise. Now what if you want to have 8 row wise? You want the arrangement of the element to be row wise, then you have to change this to true. Right, so let's run this. So this changes. So now this differs from the first one. Okay. So basically you would also like to be specific with the dimension. You don't want by row by tree, you just want the number of columns. You want to be specific with the number of rows and number of columns. So let's copy, right? So this one is arrangement. You want to be specific with the number of columns, so let's say number of columns should be 2, right? So once you specify this, you have 3 rows and 2 columns. So let's run this. Right, you can also change it. Maybe you want 2 rows and 3 columns. Right. So run this. So this gives you 3 rows and 2 columns. Right. Another way of creating a matrix is making use of the array function. So array function can also create a matrix. Right, then you can put in the data, but if you just run this, you just get a vector. So to get the matrix form, you have to use the dimension. Dimension should be maybe you want 3 2, right? So once you run this, you're going to get a matrix, right? So these are some of the ways of creating a matrix in R. Another alternative is, let's see, another alternative is making use of the Rbind and the Cbind function. So assuming we have this vector, let's assume we have x, this vector 1 6 7 3 2, right? Assuming we have another vector y to be, let's say, 8, 2, 4, 9, and 5. Right. So I want to create a matrix with this vector, so I can make use of the rbind function. So this is basically going to arrange it row wise, right? Rbind x and y. So this is going to create a matrix by row. So let's see this. So that's it. Then I can also create a matrix with the cbind function. So once I change it to cbind, it's going to create a matrix by column, right? So you're good to go. Right now, before we go, let's look at, we have to take note of this. You can actually use any data type inside a matrix as long as they are homogeneous, right? So basically we can also create a matrix, right? Let's say this is a character. So long as they are homogeneous, we are good to go. So let's say we have A, B, and C, and let's add one, D. This is a character, right? So long as they are homogeneous, you can create a matrix with it. So let's say number of rows 2, right? Okay, so let's run this. So this also creates a matrix for us, right?